ready? Well, hello there. Welcome. This is Build Your Wealth, the Trajan Wealth. He's Jeff Jr. He's the star of the show. My name is Rusty Humphries. I'm just here soaking up the greatness. And I appreciate you being here. We sure do. Would you do us a favor just before we even start? Hold on one second.
Sure.
Before we start, do me a favor, subscribe. Please, just subscribe. Would you do me a favor? Subscribe, okay? Hit the subscribe button. Oh, share it. Don't forget to share. Let people know, because we all want the wisdom of the great Jeff Jr., and it'll really help pay off. As a matter of fact, I want to do something, because we had a show a couple of weeks ago, and I just happen to have the prop here. What a magic. Weeks later, I still have the prop handy. And this was, we did a show on Thanksgiving.
We did?
Around Thanksgiving. And we talked about families. That has nothing to do with what we're doing in this show, though. The one before that was when we talked about day trading.
Right. I remember that one.
You remember that one? Okay.
Like it was yesterday. Like it was
just moments ago. I mean, it's interesting. But we talked about day trading, and when you were talking about that, you were talking about day trading's fine. It's fun. You want to get on the computer, you want to play, but don't do it all in that.
Right.
And you kind of got a little bit into diversification. And I want to spend a little bit of time on that, because it is pretty important, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly. Yeah, absolutely. Diversification is incredibly important.
I mean, it sounds good to just, I like, some guys like Tesla. Let's just put her all in Tesla.
Right.
Now, why does that not work?
Well, simply because you can really get caught. I mean, let's use Tesla as an example. I mean, Tesla has went from nothing to where it is today to back down, and you name it. I mean, it's all over the board. So if you can handle that kind of volatility, you can be in a much more sector-specific portfolio. But for real prudent investing, it's very important to be broadly diversified.
Okay, using big words there, sector-specific. So go ahead.
Sector-specific meaning you're in one specific sector, or one specific industry, or one specific area.
Okay, so movies, you wouldn't want to put all your money in Disney and all the movie companies. That'd probably be pretty stupid.
That's right, especially right now.
Right.
But being diversified, it goes back to the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket, and that's really what diversification does. So when you work with a financial advisor such as those here at Trajan Wealth, it's our goal to build assets in a manner that is prudent and consistent with what your long-term goals are.
How many sectors do you think you need? I mean, what makes up a diverse portfolio?
Well, it depends on how broad you want to get. There is such a thing as over-diversification. You can be over-diversified, and so if you're over-diversified, now you're just kind of bouncing back and forth between these sectors, and you're not really getting ahead.
Okay.
So, within a portfolio, I'd say have 10 to 15 different sectors. But what do we mean by sectors? Is it global? Is it business related? So there's a lot of variables here.
Is there one kind of asset that you normally recommend, or is it you always have to be diversified? Is there something you go, that one, that tech sector, that's pretty good. I like that one.
It really depends on the client's goals. It all comes back to risk. I know a few weeks ago we did something on risk. We talked about beta, which is just a fancy word for risk. So it's really based upon how risk adverse the prospect or the client wants to be, because the tech sector specifically, that's going to fluctuate a lot more than others. So if they are emotionally tolerant to fluctuations, then we might go a little bit more into tech or all into tech.
What is good right now? I mean, I know we're gonna this video is gonna be, you're gonna watch this in 4. I mean, you can't even predict that, right?
You never can, and nobody could, right? But what's good right now is what was good 10 years ago, what was good 20 years ago, what will be good 20 years from now, which is to have a diversified portfolio that meets your long-term objectives. That's what's going to be good.
And I would think, a lot of people go, well, I'm going to invest in, Apple, because that one is rock solid. Sears was rock solid at one point.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there's a lot of companies that were at one point were the place, and now they're gone.
Right. I think the 80s and 90s and even today has taught us a lot, that you just can't base your investment decisions on what one solid company is, and that's where the diversification comes in. General Electric is another company that has, come from the tip of the spear down, and they're just kind of on the bottom now. J.C. Penney is another one. Sears is another one, and there's so many. Enron is another one. A lot of these companies that you think are always going to be there, it just isn't necessarily the case. We're going to constantly innovate. We're going to constantly be competitive. And that's where the diversification plays a big role.
What is an ETF?
So an ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund.
Okay.
So think of a mutual fund. Most people understand a mutual fund, but what a mutual fund is, it's a basket, it's a pool. So within that basket or that pool of one mutual fund, there are anywhere between 200 to 500 individual companies within that one mutual fund. Okay. Now, with a mutual fund, there are money managers inside of that.
In each one
of the mutual funds, buying and selling the stocks within that single mutual fund. Okay. Now, with an ETF, it's very similar concept. However, it is a set portfolio.
Okay.
So within that ETF, it's still a basket or a pool, and there are 200 to 500 different companies. But the big difference is that ETF doesn't have internal managers that are buying and selling. It's a set portfolio. So that really does two things. First, it's going to reduce your expense.
Okay.
Because you don't have to worry about the internal managers buying and selling.
Okay.
That's one. And the second thing is
I hate those internal managers. That's me, though.
Well, they
They drive me nuts.
Generally speaking,
middle management's never good.
Right. No. You're just going to drive up your expense.
That's right.
And then secondly, with an ETF, you're in a set portfolio, so the tax consequences, you're only going to receive, let's say, a 1099 or a tax form once that entire ETF has been sold. Unlike a mutual fund, you own that same mutual fund. The internal managers are buying and selling here. So you're going to receive a 1099 regardless. So there are tax advantages also associated with ETF.
Mutual fund you're not as happy with as the ETF. And I've learned it because one is over here and one's here.
We're generalizing, but let's just go with that.
Okay. So ETF is good.
I'm much more of a fan of ETFs than I am mutual funds, for sure.
Is there any advice you give to somebody who's just kind of getting started to how to do a better job of mixing their investments? Is there anything that you'd suggest?
Be diversified and be open to having multiple investments. When somebody who just gets started with investing, they're just going to look at the news, or they're going to ask a buddy who has no clue what they're doing.
Right.
Oftentimes, and they're just going to buy one investment, and they're going to keep on buying that investment. But if you use an Apple phone and you really like Apple, buy Apple. If you think it's going to continue to work, if you have a Mac at home and you have an Apple iPhone, buy Apple. But also you also use Amazon, buy some Amazon. Have a broadly diversified portfolio, even if you are a do-it-yourselfer. You're going to be much happier in the end.
All right, I think you're going to be even more happy in the end if you work with my friend Jeff Jr. and his team here at Trajan Wealth. So do yourself a favor, go to TrajanWealth.com. You'll find out a bunch of information. There's a phone number right here that you can call to get right to Jeff's team so that he can help you, his team can help you find out the best mix of investments and the best way to do this for your portfolio, for yourself and for your family. Right?
That's right.
Did I wrap that up just right?
That's perfect.
Okay, before we wrap it up, what should we ask people to do?
Subscribe.
That's right.
Subscribe.
Hit the subscribe button. Please subscribe and share this with your friends. The show keeps growing. Have you looked at your numbers?
I have.
They're going up.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing.
So share it. So some of these concepts, I'd say, might not be, they're designed for different people at all different levels. Sometimes we get a little detailed. Sometimes we don't get overly detailed. Make sure to share this.
Absolutely. And there's a great library of shows here on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, so you can kind of look at topics that you might grab your attention and kind of maybe even go back a couple of weeks. So sure appreciate you. Thanks, Jeff.
I appreciate you.
And we appreciate you even more. Again, hit that subscribe button and share it. We do appreciate you. Thank you very much. I'm Rusty Humphries. He's Jeff Jr. And this is Build Your Wealth with Trajan Wealth.
Investment advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor.